Daniel Reed thought he was only being called to fix another broken system. As a maintenance worker at one of the tallest corporate buildings in the city, he was used to entering rooms where no one remembered his name. He fixed lights, vents, doors, and pipes, then disappeared before the people in expensive suits looked up from their laptops. That morning was supposed to be no different. The air conditioning had failed in the executive boardroom minutes before a major investor meeting. Daniel grabbed his toolbox, took the service elevator to the top floor, and reminded himself to finish quickly. His daughter Lily was waiting after school, and late fees were charged by the minute. But the moment he stepped into the boardroom, Daniel froze. At the head of the long glass table sat Elena Martinez, the woman he had loved 15 years ago, the woman he had walked away from without ever explaining why. She was no longer the young woman who once dreamed with him at a bus station. She wore a tailored suit, spoke with quiet authority, and commanded the attention of everyone in the room. Then one of the executives turned to her and said, "Ms. Martinez, should we delay the investor presentation?" Daniel's grip tightened around his toolbox. Elena was not just in the room, she was the CEO. Before Daniel could lower his head and escape, Elena looked up. Recognition flashed across her face. Then she said his name. And if you believe stories about second chances, quiet strength, and people finally being seen deserve to be told, make sure to follow the channel. There is more to Daniel's story than a broken air conditioner, and what happens next may remind you that no honest life is ever too small to matter. Daniel had learned to move through expensive buildings without being noticed. He knew which elevators the executives preferred, which conference rooms overheated after noon, and which marble floors turned slick when the cleaning crew rushed between meetings. He knew how to fix a jammed service door with a screwdriver, how to quiet a rattling vent with one hand, and how to disappear before anyone in a tailored suit remembered to ask his name. That Thursday morning, he was not thinking about power, money, or the people who made decisions on the top floor of Martinez Global Solutions. He was thinking about his daughter's lunchbox. Lily had asked for peanut butter sandwiches cut into stars. Daniel had managed circles instead because the plastic cookie cutter had cracked at the handle. She had laughed anyway, kissed his cheek, and told him circles were just stars that had not learned how to point yet. The memory stayed with him as he pushed his maintenance cart across the polished lobby, past the wall of glass that reflected a man in a faded navy uniform, work boots, and a tool belt heavy enough to pull at his hip. "Daniel," his supervisor called from the service desk. "Executive floor, emergency." Daniel stopped. "What kind?" "Air system in the main boardroom is down. Big meeting in 20 minutes. CEO, board, investors, all of them. Take the west service elevator. And please, for the love of my blood pressure, make it fast." Daniel glanced at the digital clock above the security gate. If he finished quickly, he could still leave on time to pick Lily up from after-school care. Late fees were charged by the minute, and every minute had begun to feel like a small punishment. "I'm on it," he said. He rode the service elevator alone, listening to the low hum behind the walls. The higher it climbed, the quieter the building seemed to become. Downstairs, people laughed near vending machines. Carts squeaked, phones rang, doors slammed. Up here, the silence felt designed, expensive, protected. When the elevator opened onto the executive floor, Daniel stepped into a hallway that smelled faintly of leather, coffee, and fresh flowers. The carpet swallowed the sound of his boots. Framed photographs lined the walls. Ribbon cuttings, charity galas, smiling executives shaking hands with governors and mayors. Daniel kept his eyes forward. He had worked in the building for 3 years and had been on this floor only a handful of times. Each visit reminded him of the same thing. Some people lived in rooms where the air itself seemed cleaner. Others were called in only when that air stopped working. A young assistant hurried toward him, tablet pressed to her chest. "Your maintenance?" "Yes, ma'am." "Boardroom A, they're already inside. Just be quiet and quick." Daniel nodded. He did not mind the instruction. Quiet and quick was what the building expected from men like him. He pushed open the heavy glass door with his shoulder and entered the boardroom. The first thing he noticed was the heat. The second was the table. It stretched nearly the length of the room, black and shining, surrounded by people in dark suits with laptops, folders, and bottles of water arranged in front of them like weapons. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the silver edges of the city skyline beyond the glass. Daniel lowered his gaze, already searching for the wall panel that controlled the air system. Then a voice near the head of the table said, calm and firm, "We can continue once the temperature is handled." Something in that voice stopped him. Daniel's hand tightened around the handle of his toolbox. He knew that voice. He had heard it once through cheap payphones, across crowded bus stations, in whispered plans made under porch lights after midnight. He had heard it laugh when rain soaked them both on the walk home from school. He had heard it say his name like it belonged to the future. Slowly, Daniel looked up. At the center of the table sat Elena Martinez. For one strange second, the room vanished. There were no investors, no glass walls, no board members watching the maintenance man by the door. There was only the girl from 15 years ago, standing beneath the cracked roof of the Greyhound station with a duffel bag at her feet and tears she had tried not to show. But the girl was gone. The woman before him wore a cream blazer, a gold watch, and the kind of stillness that made other people wait before speaking. Her dark hair was swept back neatly. Her face was older, sharper, more controlled, yet Daniel saw the same eyes. The same steady brown eyes that had once looked at him as if he could build anything. An older man beside her cleared his throat. "Ms. Martinez, should we delay the investor presentation?" Ms. Martinez. Daniel knew the company had changed leadership 2 years earlier. Everyone had received the announcement. Everyone had seen the name Elena Martinez in the company-wide email. But Daniel had never opened the article. He had seen the last name and told himself there were many people named Martinez. He had told himself that because it was easier. Now there was no easy story left. Elena Martinez was not visiting. She was not a consultant, not a guest, not someone passing through the building. She was the CEO. The woman he had loved, the woman he had left without a proper goodbye, now sat at the highest seat in the company where he repaired vents and changed filters. Daniel felt suddenly aware of everything about himself. The sweat at his collar, the scuff marks on his boots, the gray stain near his sleeve, the roughness of his hands. His toolbox seemed louder than it should have been when he set it on the floor. He turned toward the control panel, praying she would not recognize him. Maybe 15 years had been enough. Maybe the uniform, the beard, the weight of fatherhood around his eyes had changed him. Maybe he could fix the system, nod politely, and leave before the past opened its mouth. He removed the panel cover and forced his hands to work. Loose wire, faulty sensor, simple enough. He could solve simple things. Simple things did not ask why he had disappeared. Simple things did not remember promises made by a 20-year-old boy who had not yet learned how heavy life could get. Behind him, the meeting resumed in careful fragments. Projected cost, community impact, shareholder concerns. Daniel focused on the wires. Then the air kicked on. A soft rush moved through the vents, cooling the room. Several people exhaled with relief. Daniel closed the panel, gathered his tools, and turned toward the door. He almost made it. "Daniel?" The sound of his name froze him. No one else in that room could have said it that way. He turned slowly. Elena was standing now. The room watched her, watching him. Her expression was controlled, but her eyes had changed completely. Beneath the polish and power, something old and wounded had surfaced. Daniel swallowed. Every instinct told him to protect himself, to lower his head, to make the distance between them official before anyone could guess there had ever been closeness. So he gave a small nod and said, "Good morning, Ms. Martinez." The formality landed between them like a locked door. For a moment, Elena said nothing. Around them, board members exchanged glances. The assistant near the wall looked from Daniel's uniform to Elena's face, sensing a story no one had explained. Elena's voice softened. "It's been a long time." "Yes, ma'am," Daniel said. He hated how small the words sounded. He hated that part of him wanted to run. He hated that another part of him wanted to ask if she had ever waited, if she had ever looked back, if the life she had built had cost her anything. But this was not a bus station. This was not the past. This was her boardroom, and Daniel was there to fix the air. He picked up his toolbox. System should hold now. If it acts up again, facilities can send someone. Elena's mouth tightened slightly at the word someone. Before she could answer, Marcus Hale, the company's CFO, leaned back in his chair with an impatient smile. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. That will be all." Daniel did not look at him. He looked once at Elena, just long enough to see that she had not stopped searching his face. Then he left. In the hallway, the cold executive air hit him at full force. Daniel walked fast toward the service elevator, his pulse pounding, his throat dry. The doors opened. He stepped inside and pressed the button for the basement. Only when the elevator began to descend did he let his shoulders drop. 15 years ago, Daniel had walked away from Elena Martinez because he believed she deserved a life bigger than the one he could offer. He had told himself silence was mercy. He had told himself disappearing was love. Now she was the CEO of the building where he worked with a wrench in his hand, and she had said his name in front of everyone. Daniel closed his eyes. The past had found him on the top floor, and this time there was nowhere left to hide. By the time Daniel reached the basement level, the building had returned to its usual rhythm. Pipes knocked behind concrete walls. The service elevator groaned open. Someone from housekeeping pushed a cart stacked with towels and cleaning bottles past him and nodded without slowing down. The fluorescent lights above the maintenance corridor flickered once, then steadied. Down here, nobody cared who sat at the head of the boardroom table. Down here, Daniel knew where he belonged. He walked into the maintenance office, set his toolbox on the workbench, and stared at the scratched metal surface as if it could explain what had just happened. The room smelled of oil, dust, and burnt coffee. A radio played softly from the corner, but he could not hear the song. Elena Martinez, CEO. "Man, you look like you saw a ghost," his co-worker Ray said from the break table. Daniel forced himself to move. "Just hot up there." "Executive floor hot?" Ray laughed. "Good. Let them sweat like the rest of us for once." Daniel gave a faint smile, but it disappeared quickly. Ray noticed. "You good?" "Yeah." It was the answer Daniel gave to everything. Bills overdue, back aching, Lily sick at school, car making a sound he could not afford to diagnose. Yeah, always yeah. He grabbed the next work order from the board and tried to bury himself in tasks. A leaking sink on the 6th floor. A buzzing light fixture near accounting. A jammed storage room lock. Each job had a clear problem and a clear solution. Tighten, replace, reset, repair. People were harder. Memories were worse. At 3:30, Daniel changed out of his work gloves, signed his timesheet, and hurried toward the bus stop. His old truck was in the shop again, waiting on a fuel pump he was not sure he could pay for until Friday. The bus was crowded, and he stood near the rear door with one hand gripping the rail, his mind still trapped in the boardroom. He remembered Elena at 19, sitting beside him on the hood of his father's old car, tracing plans in the air with her finger. "You'll design machines," she had said. "I'll run the company. We'll hire everybody who ever got told they weren't good enough." Daniel had laughed then. "You already sound like a boss. And you already sound scared of a woman in charge." "I'm not scared." "No?" She had leaned closer, smiling. "Then promise me you won't disappear when life gets hard." He had promised. The bus jolted, pulling him back to the present. 15 years later, that promise felt like a hand closing around his throat. Lily was waiting outside the after-school center with her backpack on one shoulder and a purple folder hugged to her chest. Her braids were uneven from a long day of running, and one shoelace had come loose. Daniel's chest softened the moment he saw her. "Hey, star girl," he said. She ran to him. "Daddy, you're only 4 minutes late." "Only 4? Miss Paula said she wasn't charging this time because I told her you fix important things." Daniel glanced at the front desk through the window and lifted a grateful hand. "Then I owe you one." "You owe me 2. I also saved you a cookie. They walked home together from the bus stop, Lily talking fast about school, fractions, a spelling quiz, and a boy named Tyler who said astronauts could not be scared of the dark. Daniel listened, asked questions, and carried her backpack when she began dragging it behind her. Their apartment sat on the second floor of a brick building with thin walls and a stairwell light that Daniel had fixed twice, even though the landlord never paid him for it. Inside, the living room was small but clean. A folded blanket covered the worn couch. Lily's drawings were taped to the refrigerator. A jar labeled field trip money sat beside a stack of unpaid envelopes. Daniel started dinner while Lily did homework at the kitchen table. Boxed pasta, frozen vegetables, leftover chicken. Nothing fancy, but warm. "Daddy," Lily said after a while, "why are you quiet?" Daniel stirred the pot. "Just tired." "You're always tired. This is different tired." He looked over his shoulder. She had her pencil in her hand, but her eyes were on him. He smiled because she deserved one. "I saw someone today I used to know." "Like a friend?" Daniel considered the word. "Something like that." "Did they make you sad?" "No, baby." Lily tilted her head. She had Elena's old habit without knowing it, that steady look that made a lie feel childish. Daniel turned back to the stove. "Maybe a little." "Do they know you're good at fixing things?" The question was so simple it nearly broke him. He thought of Elena watching him in that boardroom. He thought of the title he had used like a shield, Ms. Martinez. He thought of how quickly he had wanted to vanish before she could see too much. "I don't know," he said. "Well, they should." Daniel swallowed hard and kept stirring. After dinner, he helped Lily with fractions, checked her reading log, and watched her arrange her stuffed animals by height. Later, he sat on the edge of her bed while she handed him 3 hair ties for the morning. "2 braids tomorrow," she said. "Not 1. 1 makes me look like I gave up." "Yes, ma'am. And no lumpy parts. I'll do my best." She smiled, then grew serious. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Are you proud of your job?" The question landed quietly, but it struck deeper than she knew. Daniel looked at her small face, at the trust in her eyes. He wanted to answer quickly. He wanted to say yes and mean it without hesitation. "I'm proud that I take care of you," he said. "That's not what I asked." He let out a soft breath. "My job is honest work, that matters." "But are you proud?" Daniel touched the edge of her blanket, smoothing a wrinkle that did not need smoothing. "Some days I am. And other days?" "Other days I forget." Lily seemed to think about that. Then she reached out and patted his hand. "I'll remind you." He bent and kissed her forehead before she could see his eyes shine. "You do that." When Lily finally slept, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of traffic outside. He pulled a dented cookie tin from the top cabinet, the one Lily thought held old receipts. Inside were letters. Not many, just 6 envelopes, yellowed at the edges, all addressed to Elena Martinez in handwriting Daniel barely recognized as his own. None had stamps. None had ever been mailed. He took the top one out and opened it. "Elena, I don't know how to explain this without sounding like a coward." He stopped reading. He remembered the night he wrote it. His father asleep in the next room, coughing through the walls. A hospital bill spread across the table. A rejection notice from the college financial office. Elena's last voicemail saved on his phone, her voice bright and worried as she asked him to call back. He had loved her so much that it scared him. She had been leaving for a university that knew her value. Daniel had been staying behind with debt, grief, and a father who needed help standing from a chair. Every time Elena talked about internships, city streets, and future plans, Daniel heard the distance growing. So he stopped answering. At first he told himself it would be for a few days, then a week. Then the silence became too large to cross. He wrote letters instead. Letters full of apologies, excuses, love, fear. He wrote that she should not wait for him. He wrote that he was proud of her. He wrote that he hoped she would become everything the world had tried to deny her. He never mailed any of them. Months later, his aunt told him Elena had come looking for him. Daniel had been working construction 2 towns over. By the time he heard, Elena was gone again. His aunt said Elena looked angry and heartbroken. Daniel pretended not to care. That was another lie he had lived with. Now she was back, not as the girl he had failed, but as a woman powerful enough to fill a room with silence. Daniel folded the letter and put it away. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a moment, he already knew. The message was short. "Daniel, this is Elena. I would like to talk if you are willing." He stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Lily's voice echoed from earlier. "Are you proud?" Daniel locked the phone without replying. Then he sat in the dark, trapped between the man he had become and the boy who had once promised not to disappear. Daniel did not answer Elena's message that night. He told himself it was because Lily needed help in the morning, because rent was due, because the truck still needed repairs, because he had no time to step into a conversation that could only reopen old wounds. But the truth was simpler and less flattering. He was afraid. The next morning, he tied Lily's braids twice before getting them right. The first attempt had a crooked part, and Lily caught it in the hallway mirror with the seriousness of a building inspector. "Daddy!" "I see it. It's leaning. Your part has personality. It has a problem." He laughed despite himself and started over. For a few minutes, the apartment felt normal again. Lily ate cereal standing up because they were late. Daniel packed her lunch, signed a permission slip, and searched for his keys under a pile of worksheets. The day moved with the ordinary chaos he understood. Then his phone lit up again. "Daniel, I won't force a conversation, but I think we both know there are things we never said." He turned the screen face down. Lily noticed. "Is that the person from yesterday?" Daniel slipped the phone into his pocket. "Finish your cereal." "That means yes. That means we're late." At the bus stop, Lily leaned against his side, still half sleepy. Daniel watched cars pass and tried not to think about Elena waiting for a reply. 15 years ago, he had ignored calls until they stopped coming. He knew exactly what silence could do to a person. That knowledge did not make him braver. At work, he avoided the executive floor completely. He took every basement work order he could find. He repaired a loose handrail near the loading dock, checked the boiler gauges twice, replaced a broken latch in a storage closet, and volunteered to inspect the backup generator. When Ray asked why he suddenly loved underground spaces, Daniel said the building had a lot of needs below sea level. By noon, his supervisor handed him a clipboard. "You're requested upstairs." Daniel's stomach tightened. "For what?" "CEO's office. Something about a lighting issue. The executive team has their own tech crew for that." His supervisor gave him a look. "Apparently they requested you." Daniel looked down the corridor, already searching for an excuse. "Send Calvin from electrical." "Calvin's on the West Wing leak." "Send Ray." "Ray's still there too." "Send me tomorrow." "Daniel," the supervisor lowered his voice, "I don't know what's going on, but when the CEO's assistant asks for someone by name, I don't play games. Go upstairs." Daniel took the clipboard. The service elevator felt smaller than it had the day before. As it climbed, he wished for a mechanical failure. Nothing serious, just enough to keep the doors closed between floors until everyone forgot about him. But the elevator opened. Elena's assistant led him down a quiet hallway past glass offices and framed awards. "Ms. Martinez is in a call. The light panel is inside." Daniel nodded, though he knew there was nothing wrong with the lights. He could hear it before entering, that steady electrical hum of a system working perfectly. The office was large, but not showy. Shelves of books, a long desk, a framed photograph of a younger Elena standing beside a group of girls at a scholarship event. Another photo showed factory workers in blue shirts, smiling beneath a company banner. Martinez Global Solutions had been founded decades earlier by Elena's uncle, a man whose name still appeared on plaques in the lobby. But everyone in the building knew the company had nearly collapsed before Elena took over. She had rebuilt its reputation, cut waste, expanded partnerships, and turned a fading family name into something powerful again. Daniel stood in that office and realized she had not inherited a throne. She had fought for one. Elena stood near the window, phone in hand, speaking calmly about budget models and board concerns. When she saw Daniel, her expression shifted, but she did not stop the call. Daniel went to the wall panel and opened it. As expected, nothing was wrong. He tested a connection anyway because pretending to work was easier than standing still. Elena ended the call a minute later. "There isn't a lighting issue, is there?" he asked without turning around. "No," she said. Daniel closed the panel. "Then this is a bad use of company resources. I could say the same about a man hiding in the basement to avoid one conversation." He faced her then. For a moment, neither spoke. In daylight, away from the boardroom, Elena looked less untouchable. Still elegant, still powerful, but tired around the eyes. Daniel recognized that kind of tired. It came from carrying too much and refusing to set it down. "You shouldn't have called me up here," he said. "You shouldn't have disappeared 15 years ago." The words struck cleanly. Daniel looked away first. "I had reasons." "I know you did. I just never got to hear them." "You were better off." Elena's face hardened, not with anger alone, but with old hurt. "You don't get to decide that for me." Daniel gripped the handle of his toolbox. "Look at you, Elena. You became exactly who you were supposed to be." "And that means what? That it didn't hurt?" He had no answer. She stepped closer, though she kept enough distance not to trap him. "I came back that winter. Did you know that?" Daniel's eyes lifted. "I went to your aunt's house," Elena said. "I waited on that porch for almost an hour. She told me you had moved on and didn't want me chasing you." Daniel felt the floor tilt slightly beneath him. "She said that?" "She said enough." He remembered his aunt's voice months later, too casual, too careful. Elena came by, looked real upset. Maybe it's better this way. He had been too proud and too ashamed to ask for details. Elena studied his face. "You really didn't know?" Daniel's throat tightened. "I knew you came. I didn't know what she told you." "And you still never called?" "No." "Why?" The question filled the room. Daniel could have told her about hospital bills, his father's oxygen machine, the college forms he never finished, the construction jobs that left his hands swollen, the shame that grew each time her life moved forward while his seemed to shrink. He could have told her he had loved her with the desperate stupidity of a young man who thought sacrifice meant making decisions alone. Instead, he said, "Because by then I had already made a mess of it." Elena's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed steady. "You broke my heart, Daniel." He looked down. "I know." "No, I don't think you do. I think you know you feel guilty. That's different." The quiet after that was worse than yelling. Daniel picked up his toolbox. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't change it." "No," Elena said. "You can't." He reached the door before she spoke again. "But you can stop acting like the past gives you permission to be cruel now." Daniel stopped. "I'm not trying to be cruel. You called me Ms. Martinez like we were strangers. We are strangers." "No." Her voice broke slightly, then steadied. "We're people who knew each other before life taught us how to hide." Daniel stood with his back to her, one hand on the door handle. Elena continued, softer now. "I'm not asking you for anything today. Not an explanation you're not ready to give. Not forgiveness. Not friendship. But don't pretend I'm only a title, and don't pretend you're only a uniform." He left without answering. For the rest of the day, her words followed him through the walls. Don't pretend you're only a uniform. At 4, Daniel picked up Lily from school. She waved a graded spelling test in the air and announced that she had missed only one word, which she argued should not count because necessary had too many unnecessary letters. He smiled, bought her a small carton of chocolate milk from the corner store, and let her talk all the way home. But that evening, while she worked on a drawing at the kitchen table, his phone buzzed with an email from Human Resources. Subject: Invitation. Internal Community Advisory Group. Daniel opened it and frowned. He had been invited to participate in a planning group for a new employee family support initiative. The message said his practical experience with building operations and frontline staff would provide valuable insight. The first session was scheduled for Monday morning. At the bottom was Elena's name. Daniel read it twice, then closed the email. Lily looked up from her drawing. Bad news? No, just strange news. What kind? Someone at work wants me to help with a project. What project? Daniel hesitated. Something for employees, families, people who might need help. Lily's eyes brightened. Like helping kids? Maybe. And parents? Maybe. So you should do it. It's not that simple. Why not? Because he did not belong in rooms where people measured compassion against profit. Because everyone would know Elena had chosen him. Because he had spent half his life trying not to need more than he had, and this felt dangerously close to hoping again. Instead, he said, "I'm not sure I'm the right person." Lily stared at him like he had failed a very basic test. "Daddy, you fix things people forget are broken." Daniel's chest tightened. She went back to her drawing, unaware that she had just reached into a place no adult had touched in years. Later, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel stood by the kitchen counter with the invitation open on his phone. His thumb hovered over decline. Then he thought of Elena's office, her tired eyes, her anger, her hurt. He thought of Lily asking if his work mattered. He thought of the people downstairs whose names no one upstairs knew. Daniel did not accept the invitation. Not yet. But for the first time in years, he did not delete it either. On Monday morning, Daniel stood outside conference room C with his hand on the strap of his tool bag, even though he did not need tools. He had accepted the invitation at 11:47 the night before, after reading it so many times that the words stopped looking real. He told himself he was only going to listen. He would sit in the back, say little, and leave before anyone mistook his presence for ambition. But the conference room had glass walls. There was no back. Inside, 12 people sat around a bright table with tablets, notebooks, and coffee cups bearing the company logo. Most of them wore suits. A few wore polished smiles that looked practiced in mirrors. Daniel recognized Elena at the far end, speaking quietly with a woman from Human Resources. Marcus Hale sat 2 chairs to Elena's right. The CFO noticed Daniel before anyone else did. His eyes moved over Daniel's uniform, the tool bag, the work boots. Nothing in his expression changed, which somehow made the judgment feel sharper. Elena looked up and saw him. For 1 second, the room softened around her face. Then she became the CEO again. "Daniel," she said, "thank you for coming." Several heads turned. Daniel stepped inside. "Morning." The woman from Human Resources stood and offered him a warm smile. "I'm Rebecca Stone. We're glad to have you here." Daniel shook her hand carefully, aware of the grease that never seemed to leave the lines of his skin no matter how hard he scrubbed. "Thank you." A younger manager near the middle of the table glanced at Daniel's tool bag. "Are we expecting a facilities issue?" A few people chuckled. Daniel kept his face still. Elena did not smile. "No, Mr. Reed is here as part of this advisory group." The chuckling stopped. Daniel sat in the nearest empty chair, which placed him halfway down the table, too visible for comfort. He set the tool bag beside his feet. He had brought it because walking without it made him feel exposed. Now it made him look exactly like what he feared they saw. Rebecca began the meeting with slides about employee retention, public reputation, community responsibility, and long-term workforce stability. Daniel listened as carefully as he could, but the language moved in circles. Impact framework, scalable outreach, engagement metrics, strategic alignment. He understood the meaning beneath it, but the words felt dressed up for people who liked problems better when they came in charts. Elena finally turned to him. "Daniel, you spend more time with frontline staff than anyone in this room. What are we missing?" The room waited. Daniel's first instinct was to say nothing. He felt Marcus watching him. He felt the glass walls around him. He felt every year he had not spent in college, every form he had not known how to fill out, every time someone had assumed he was less intelligent because he worked with his hands. Then he thought of Lily. He cleared his throat. Most people downstairs don't know half the benefits the company already says they have. Rebecca leaned forward. Can you explain? Daniel nodded slowly. There are posters in the break room about employee assistance, but they're old. Some are covered by shift schedules. A lot of workers think asking for help gets you marked as unreliable, especially parents, especially single parents. A woman from communications typed quickly. That's helpful, Daniel continued, gaining a little steadiness. If you want people to use a program, you can't just announce it in an email. Some folks don't check company email except when a supervisor tells them to. You need someone on each shift who can explain it plain. Not corporate plain, real plain. Marcus tapped his pen once. And by real plain, you mean less sophisticated. Daniel looked at him. I mean understandable. The room went quiet. Elena's eyes stayed on Daniel, but she did not rescue him. He appreciated that more than he expected. By the end of the meeting, Daniel had spoken 4 times. Each time, his voice came easier. He talked about childcare gaps, unpredictable shifts, transportation problems, and the shame workers carried when they needed help but did not want to be seen as needy. When the meeting ended, Rebecca thanked him again. 2 managers avoided his eyes. One nodded politely. Marcus closed his folder as if ending a discussion he had never wanted. Elena approached Daniel near the door. You were good, she said. He looked through the glass wall at the hallway where an assistant walked by with a stack of folders. I was honest. That is better. Daniel wanted to accept the compliment, but praise from Elena still made something in him brace for impact. I meant what I said, he told her. I'm not doing speeches. I can help you understand some things, but I'm not becoming some symbol. I did not ask you to be a symbol. People will make me one anyway. Elena lowered her voice. Then let them be wrong. He almost smiled. Almost. That afternoon, the building seemed to know before he reached the basement. Ray was waiting by the workbench with raised eyebrows. So, should I call you Mr. Executive now? Daniel took off his gloves. Don't start. I'm just saying, a man goes upstairs for a meeting with the CEO, comes back different. Nothing's different. Ray leaned closer. People are talking. Daniel shut his locker a little harder than necessary. People always talk. Yeah, but usually not about us. That was what Daniel feared. By the next day, the rumors had grown legs. Someone in payroll said Daniel and the CEO knew each other from before. Someone in security claimed Elena had personally requested him. Someone from accounting suggested he was about to get promoted into a job no one had posted. Daniel tried to ignore it. He fixed a door closer, replaced an air filter, and unclogged a sink. But everywhere he went, people looked at him half a second longer than usual. At lunch, 2 janitors stopped talking when he entered the break room. One of them, a woman named Gloria, finally said, Is it true you're helping with that family program? Daniel opened his lunch container. A little. My daughter works nights, Gloria said. She's got 2 kids. If they make childcare real and not just something pretty on a flyer, tell them that matters. Daniel looked at her. I will. Across the table, an older security guard named Paul added, Tell them changing shifts last minute is killing people. Folks can't plan nothing. Daniel nodded. By the end of lunch, he had 3 napkins filled with notes. That evening, Lily found him at the kitchen table, copying those notes into a spiral notebook. She climbed into the chair across from him. Are you doing homework? Something like that. For the CEO project? Daniel paused. Who told you it was the CEO project? You did. With your face. He laughed softly. Lily leaned over the notebook. What does shift flexibility mean? It means people knowing when they work early enough to plan their lives. That sounds normal. It should be. She watched him write. Are you scared? Daniel stopped moving his pen. Yes, he said, because he was tired of lying to her. Lily considered this with great seriousness. Astronauts are scared too. I thought Tyler said they weren't. Tyler is wrong about many things. Daniel smiled. Then Lily said, if you help them, maybe some other kid's dad won't miss their school play. The smile faded. He had missed one of Lily's plays the year before when a pipe burst on the 12th floor and his supervisor begged him to stay. Lily had told him it was fine. He had kept the paper program in his drawer like evidence against himself. Daniel touched the notebook. Maybe. The next advisory meeting was harder. Marcus came prepared. He asked for cost estimates, liability projections, and proof that employee family support would reduce turnover enough to justify the investment. He never said Daniel did not belong there. He did not have to. Every question was shaped to remind the room that Daniel had stories, while Marcus had numbers. Daniel listened, frustrated by how easily real pain could be made to look weak when placed beside a spreadsheet. After the meeting, Marcus caught him near the elevator. "Mr. Reed," he said pleasantly. "A word." Daniel turned. "Yes, sir?" Marcus smiled. "You seem sincere. That is admirable, but sincerity can become dangerous when people mistake it for expertise." Daniel said nothing. "Elena has a generous heart," Marcus continued. "Sometimes too generous. I would hate to see someone in your position placed under pressure he is not prepared to handle." There it was. Someone in your position. Daniel felt heat rise in his face. "I know my position." "Good," Marcus said. "Then you understand the importance of staying within it." The elevator opened. Marcus stepped inside and left Daniel standing in the hallway. For a long moment, Daniel did not move. Then he looked at his reflection in the polished elevator doors. Navy uniform, work boots, tired eyes. Stay within it. That night, he almost emailed Elena to quit. Instead, he opened his notebook and wrote Marcus's words at the top of a blank page. Below them, he wrote every name Gloria and Paul had given him. Every problem, every missed school pickup, every parent who chose overtime over sleep. Every child who waited in lobbies, cars, and break rooms because the adults who loved them could not afford better options. If Marcus wanted expertise, Daniel would bring the kind no consultant could buy. He would bring the truth. Daniel spent the next 2 weeks gathering the kind of information no one on the executive floor had ever asked for. He spoke with night cleaners who left their children sleeping at relatives' houses because their shifts ended after midnight. He spoke with security guards who worked double shifts after rent increases. He spoke with cafeteria workers who knew the company had benefits but did not know how to apply without a computer at home. He spoke with single parents who saved sick days for their children and came to work ill because they could not afford to lose hours. He did not call them interviews. That would have made people nervous. He talked while fixing lights, tightening pipes, replacing filters, and waiting for elevators. He listened in break rooms and loading bays. He wrote everything in his spiral notebook, careful to remove names when people asked him to. At first, some workers teased him. "Look at Daniel taking notes like a lawyer. You going corporate on us now?" But when they realized he was not collecting stories to impress anyone, they began to trust him. Gloria gave him a list of parents who needed after-school help. Paul from security explained how last-minute shift changes caused missed medical appointments and childcare emergencies. A cafeteria worker named Denise told Daniel she had almost quit after her son's school bus schedule changed and she could not find anyone to pick him up. "You tell them we don't need pity," Denise said. "We need something that actually works." Daniel wrote that sentence down exactly. Elena noticed the change in him. He still kept his distance from her, but in meetings he no longer sat as close to the door. He answered questions with more confidence. When someone used vague language, he brought the conversation back to specific people and specific problems. When Rebecca suggested another email campaign, Daniel explained why emails would miss half the intended audience. When communications wanted a launch video, he asked whether the program would exist before the cameras arrive. Elena watched him with quiet pride. Daniel tried not to notice. Their conversations remained careful, professional, Almost. One evening after a planning session ran late, Elena found him alone in the conference room gathering his notebook. "You never told me you kept notes like that," she said. Daniel closed the notebook. "You never asked." A small smile touched her mouth. "Fair." He looked away before the warmth between them became too visible. "I'm just trying to make sure they can't say it's only feelings." "Elena," she said. He frowned. "What?" "My name. When we're alone, you can say it." Daniel held her gaze for a moment. The room was quiet except for the distant hum of the building. Saying her name felt more intimate than he wanted to admit. "Elena," he said at last. Her expression softened. For a second, the years between them thinned. Daniel remembered her sitting on the hood of his father's car, daring him to dream bigger. Elena looked as if she remembered it too. Then Daniel stepped back and picked up his bag. "I have to get Lily," he said. Elena nodded, but disappointment passed quickly across her face. "Of course." He left before either of them could say anything harder. That night, Lily sat at the kitchen table working on a poster for school. Across the top, in purple marker, she had written, "My hero." Daniel stopped when he saw his own name beneath it. "What's this?" he asked. "Our writing assignment. We have to talk about someone brave." He tried to smile. "You could have picked Harriet Tubman, or an astronaut." "I picked you." "Lily." "What?" He sat across from her. "Baby, I'm not sure I'm the best example." Her face changed. "Why do you always do that?" "Do what?" "Make yourself smaller when I say something good about you." Daniel had no answer. Lily pushed the poster closer. "You help people. You fix things. And now you're helping the CEO make work better for families. That counts." Daniel stared at the purple letters until they blurred. At the next major meeting, Elena brought the full proposal to the leadership team. The plan was no longer a small public relations campaign. It included a real emergency family fund, shift scheduling protections, trained benefit guides on every floor, after-school partnerships, scholarships for children of hourly employees, and a pilot childcare subsidy for single parents. The cost was significant. Marcus Hale was ready. He sat at the far side of the table with a slim folder in front of him and the calm expression of a man who had sharpened every word. Several board members had joined remotely on the large screen. Others sat in person, including two investors Daniel had seen in the overheated boardroom on the day Elena found him again. Elena presented first. Rebecca followed with retention data. Communications outlined reputational value. Then Elena turned to Daniel. "Mr. Reed has been collecting direct feedback from frontline employees," she said. "I'd like him to speak." Daniel had known this might happen, but knowing did not stop his chest from tightening. He stood, notebook in hand. For the first few minutes, he did well. He spoke about shift instability, lack of awareness around benefits, and the difference between a program that looked good and one people could actually use. He quoted Denise without naming her. He explained that dignity mattered as much as access. Some people listened. Marcus waited. When Daniel finished, Marcus folded his hands. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. That was moving." Daniel heard the trap before it opened. Marcus continued, "Could you remind the board of your formal background in workforce strategy?" The room went still. Daniel's fingers tightened around the notebook. "I don't have a formal background in that." "Human resources management?" "No." "Finance?" "No." "Community program administration?" Daniel felt every eye on him. "No." Marcus nodded, as if Daniel had proven the point for him. "Then what we have, essentially, is anecdotal testimony from an employee whose personal circumstances may make him emotionally invested, but not necessarily qualified to advise on a multi-million-dollar initiative." Elena's face hardened. "Marcus, I am not questioning his sincerity," Marcus said smoothly. "I am questioning governance. We cannot build corporate strategy around the feelings of a maintenance worker, especially one whose relationship with the CEO may create the appearance of personal bias." The words struck the room like glass breaking. Daniel could not breathe. Relationship, personal bias, maintenance worker. He saw heads turn. He saw surprise, curiosity, suspicion. The story he had tried to keep buried had been dragged into the open and twisted into something small. Elena stood. "That is inappropriate." Marcus looked at her. "It is relevant." Daniel heard nothing after that. He was 20 again, standing outside a hospital room with bills in his hand. He was the boy who stopped calling because he believed Elena would be ashamed of him someday. He was the man in the uniform, in the wrong room, being reminded of his place. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. Elena turned to him. "Daniel, wait!" But he was already moving. He left the conference room, walked past the glass walls, past assistants who pretended not to look, past the elevators, and into the stairwell. He went down one flight, then another, until his legs burned and the executive floor was far above him. In the basement, he opened his locker and stood there shaking. Ray came in. "Daniel?" "I'm done," Daniel said. "With what?" "All of it." He pulled out his phone and wrote the email before he could lose the nerve. "Ms. Martinez, I appreciate the opportunity, but I am withdrawing from the advisory group effective immediately. I believe the project would be better served by someone with proper qualifications. Daniel Reed." He sent it. Then he walked to his supervisor's office and requested night shifts for the rest of the month. When Lily asked that evening how the meeting went, Daniel told her the project did not need him anymore. She looked at him for a long time. "But did you quit?" she asked. "Or did they say that?" Daniel turned away, pretending to rinse a plate. Behind him, Lily said nothing. Her silence hurt more than Marcus's words. Elena found Daniel in the basement after most of the building had gone dark. He was replacing bulbs above the storage corridor, twisting each one into place with more force than necessary. One light flickered above him, then steadied, throwing long shadows across the concrete floor. "You shouldn't be down here," Daniel said without looking at her. "Because this floor is yours and the top one is mine." He stepped off the ladder. "Because people already have enough to say. Let them. That's easy for you." "No," Elena said, "it isn't." Daniel turned and the anger finally broke through. "You don't understand what it's like to walk into a room and have people decide your worth before you speak. You don't know what it's like to be a black single father who has to work twice as hard just so nobody calls him irresponsible, unqualified, or lucky. I am tired, Elena. I am tired of proving I'm not small." Elena absorbed it without flinching. "You're right," she said. "I don't know your life. I won't pretend I do." Daniel looked away, breathing hard. "But power did not protect me from being questioned," she continued. "When I became CEO, men like Marcus said I was chosen for optics. Too emotional, too young, too Latina, too ambitious. They said I was good for the company image, not the company future. I built this place while people waited for me to fail." Daniel's guard weakened, but only slightly. Elena stepped closer. "But this is not only about Marcus. This is about 15 years ago." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I came back for you," she said. "I stood on your aunt's porch and begged for an address. I thought you had erased me." His voice dropped. "I thought I was saving you." "From what?" "From me." The words came out rough. "My father was dying. The bills were everywhere. I lost school, lost time, lost every plan we made. You were becoming everything we dreamed about, and I was drowning. I wrote 6 letters. I never mailed them. I told myself you deserved a life that didn't have my failure tied to it." Elena's eyes filled. "You didn't save me, Daniel. You left me without a choice." He nodded, ashamed. "I know." The basement seemed to hold its breath around them. Daniel looked at the ladder, the tools, the half-lit corridor. This was the kind of place where he knew what to do. Replace the bulb, check the breaker, reset the switch. But there was no tool for the hurt in Elena's face. "I was a coward," he said. Elena wiped one tear quickly, as if she hated that it had escaped. "You were young, hurt, proud, scared, maybe a coward too. People can be more than one thing." Daniel almost laughed, but it came out broken. "I loved you," he said. "That was the worst part. I loved you so much I convinced myself leaving was noble." "It wasn't noble." "No. It was lonely." He looked at her then, her voice softened. "I spent years thinking I had been easy to leave, so I made sure nobody could ever make me feel that way again. I built walls out of work, out of success, out of being untouchable." Daniel saw it then. The cost behind her poise. The loneliness beneath the title. He had spent so long making Elena larger than life that he had forgotten she was human too. "I'm sorry," he said. "I believe you." That was not forgiveness, not completely, but it was a door opening. Then Elena said, "I'm not asking you to come back for me." Daniel frowned slightly. "I mean it," she said. "I won't use what we had to pull you into a room that hurt you. But Lily deserves to see her father stand where he belongs. And those workers deserve the truth you carry." Daniel shook his head. "Marcus was right about one thing. I'm not qualified." "No," Elena said. "He was right that you don't have his qualifications. That is not the same thing." The words settled heavily between them. Daniel did not answer. That night he went home long after Lily should have been asleep. He found her at the kitchen table, her cheek pressed against a half-finished assignment. Her pencil had rolled to the floor. One sock had slipped halfway off her foot. Daniel smiled sadly and lifted her into his arms. As he carried her toward her room, the paper under her elbow slid across the table. He saw the title written at the top. "The Person I Admire Most." He laid Lily in bed, pulled the blanket over her, and returned to the kitchen. Then he read, "My dad fixes things people forget are broken." Daniel stopped at the first line. "Sometimes he fixes lights. Sometimes he fixes sinks. Sometimes he fixes my bike. But I think he also fixes people, because he listens when nobody else does." He sat down slowly. "My dad works hard. He gets tired. Sometimes when people say nice things about him, he acts like they are wrong. I don't like that. I want him to remember he is important too." Daniel pressed a hand over his mouth. "I admire my dad because he is brave even when he does not think he is brave. One day I want him to see himself the way I see him." The apartment blurred. For years, Daniel had thought his shame belonged only to him. He had worn it quietly, folded it into his work shirts, carried it in his shoulders, swallowed it before entering rooms. But Lily had seen it. She had noticed every time he lowered his voice, every time he apologized for taking space, every time he taught her with his silence that people like them should be grateful for corners instead of rooms. That hurt more than anything Marcus had said. Daniel stayed at the table long after midnight. Then he opened his notebook. The first page still had Marcus's words written at the top. "Stay within it." Daniel stared at them for a long time. Then he crossed them out. Below them, he began organizing every note, every number, every statement, every story. He separated emotional examples from measurable impact. He wrote down turnover costs Rebecca had shared. He matched employee stories with practical solutions. He prepared not like a man begging to be accepted, but like a man carrying evidence. By morning, his eyes burned from lack of sleep, but for the first time in years, he did not feel small. He felt ready. The board meeting began without him. Marcus presented the smaller version of the program first. He called it responsible, efficient, and low risk. There would be a handful of scholarships, a volunteer day, a short campaign about family values, and a press release timed for the annual report. The proposal sounded clean. It also sounded empty. Elena challenged him, but the board was wavering. Some members worried about cost. Others liked the optics of Marcus's version. A few wanted more time. Marcus knew delay was its own kind of defeat. "We all support employees," Marcus said smoothly. "But leadership requires discipline. Compassion without structure becomes expensive theater." Then the door opened. Daniel walked in wearing his clean maintenance uniform. He did not carry his tool bag. He carried only his spiral notebook and a folder of employee statements. Marcus sighed. "Mr. Reed, this is a closed meeting." Daniel looked at Elena. She did not rescue him. She did not explain him. She simply gave him the space. "I know," Daniel said, "but this company has been making closed-room decisions about people who never get invited in." The room went silent. Daniel faced the board. "I don't have an MBA. I don't have a finance degree. I don't have a title that makes people stop talking when I walk into a room. What I have are names, stories, and numbers from the people who keep this building running." He opened his notebook. He spoke about parents choosing between overtime and school pickup, workers who avoided benefits because they feared judgment, children waiting in lobbies because childcare ended before shifts did, employees who quit not because they hated the company, but because the company made it too hard for them to stay. Then he gave the numbers he had gathered with Rebecca's help: missed shifts, turnover costs, emergency absences, and internal surveys showing how many hourly employees did not understand the benefits already available to them. Marcus tried to interrupt. "Anecdotes do not replace strategy." "No," Daniel said, "but strategy without truth becomes decoration." No one laughed. Daniel continued, voice steady now. "My daughter asked me if my work mattered. I told her honest work matters, but I realized I did not always believe it. That is what happens when a company sees some people as essential only when something breaks." He looked around the room. "Value is not decided by what floor a person works on. It is shown by whether they have the courage to stand up for people who are not powerful enough to stand in rooms like this." Elena stood beside him, not in front of him. "This proposal is not charity," she said. "It is retention, culture, loyalty, and dignity. Mr. Reed helped us see the difference between a campaign and a commitment." Marcus registered his objection. He warned about budget risk, operational complexity, and precedent. But this time, his words did not erase Daniel's. The board asked questions. Daniel answered the ones he could and admitted when Rebecca was better suited for the rest. He did not pretend to know everything. That honesty made him stronger, not weaker. When the final decision came, the full program was approved for a pilot launch. Not because Elena loved Daniel, not because Daniel deserved pity, but because the proposal had weight, because the stories were real, because the numbers supported them, because for once, the people who kept the building running had been heard in the room where decisions were made. After the meeting, Daniel stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall. His knees nearly gave out. Elena came out a moment later. For a while, neither spoke. Then Daniel said, "I almost didn't come." "I know. I was scared." "I know that too." He turned to her. "I'm still scared." Elena's expression softened. "Good. That means you didn't turn yourself into stone." A small laugh escaped him, then he grew serious. "I'm sorry for 15 years ago. I thought I was letting you go because I loved you. But I was making a decision for both of us because I was ashamed." Elena looked down, then back up at him. "I'm sorry too, for letting pain turn into pride, for deciding that if you could leave me, I would never need anyone again." Daniel nodded. They were not the same people who had once stood at a bus station with the whole world ahead of them. They were older now, wounded in different ways, responsible for more than their own dreams. But for the first time, they were not hiding. "Maybe we don't start with promises," Elena said. Daniel understood. "Maybe we start with honesty." She smiled faintly. "That would be new for us." Weeks later, Martinez Global launched the Family Support Initiative. It was not perfect. Nothing real ever was. But it was real. There were trained benefit guides on every floor and every shift. There were emergency grants for employees facing family crises. There were after-school partnerships, scholarships for children of hourly workers, and a pilot childcare subsidy for single parents. Scheduling changes now required more notice except in true emergencies. And Daniel Reed became Community Program Coordinator. He still carried tools when needed. He still knew which vents rattled and which doors stuck in winter. But he no longer moved through the building as if invisibility were part of his job description. People stopped him in hallways now. Not everyone liked the change. Not everyone believed in it. But many did. Gloria hugged him the day her daughter received childcare support. Paul slapped him on the shoulder so hard, Daniel nearly dropped his coffee. Denise sent him a note with one sentence inside. "You told them we needed something real." Elena changed, too. She spent less time sealed behind glass and more time on the lower floors, listening before speaking. She visited the break rooms without cameras. She asked questions without turning every answer into a press opportunity. Slowly, the building began to feel less like two separate worlds stacked on top of each other. As for Daniel and Elena, they did not rush back into love. They chose coffee first, then conversations, then truth. Some days they talked about the past. Other days they talked about Lily, work, traffic, bad coffee, and how strange it was to know someone both as a memory and as a person standing in front of you. There were still difficult silences, still old pain, still moments when Daniel's instinct was to pull back and Elena's instinct was to protect herself. But this time, neither disappeared. At the company family day, Lily walked through the front entrance holding Daniel's hand. Not the service entrance, not the side door, the front entrance. Balloons lined the lobby. Children ran between tables stacked with snacks and coloring sheets. Employees who normally passed one another without speaking stood together with spouses, parents, and children. A banner near the stage read, "Martinez Global Family Support Initiative." Lily spotted Daniel's name on the printed program. Daniel Reed, Community Program Coordinator. She touched the letters as if making sure they were real. "That's you," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "That's me." When it was time to speak, Daniel stepped onto the stage beside Elena. He looked out at the crowd and saw uniforms, suits, security badges, cleaning carts parked near the wall, children sitting cross-legged on the floor, parents holding babies, workers from every floor of the building. For a moment, his throat tightened. Then he found Lily in the front row. She gave him 2 thumbs up. Daniel breathed. "I used to think I had to become someone impressive to be worth hearing," he said. "I thought value came from titles, offices, degrees, and the kind of rooms a person was allowed to enter." He looked around the lobby. "But I was wrong. Some of the most valuable people in this building are the ones who arrive before sunrise, leave after dark, clean what others leave behind, protect doors, fix systems, prepare food, answer calls, and keep everything moving while the world forgets to say thank you." The crowd grew quiet. Daniel continued, "This program is not about pity. It is about respect. It is about remembering that workers have families, children have dreams, and dignity should never depend on a job title." Elena watched him with pride, not as a CEO displaying an employee success story, but as a woman watching a man finally stand in the light he had always deserved. Daniel looked at Lily again. "The bravest thing a person can do is show up as themselves and tell the truth. And sometimes, when life gives us a second chance, it is not just so we can fix what was broken in the past. It is so we can build something better for someone else." Afterward, Lily ran into his arms. "I told you," she whispered. "You fix things people forget are broken." Daniel held her close and looked at Elena over Lily's shoulder. For the first time in years, he did not feel behind her, beneath her, or unworthy of standing beside her. He was not the CEO. He did not need to be. He was Daniel Reed, father, worker, witness, and a man finally brave enough to step into the light. And if Daniel's journey reminds you of someone who works quietly, loves deeply, and carries more strength than the world can see, take a moment to honor that person today. Stories like this remind us that dignity does not come from a title. It comes from courage, kindness, and the willingness to stand up for others. If you want to hear more stories about second chances, family, love, and the quiet power of ordinary people, follow the channel and stay with us for the next one.